You are now about to begin Section 3 of the University of Michigan International Center OPT Online Certification course. In this section, we will discuss the application process for obtaining authorization for optional practical training. In this section, you will learn the entire four-step process for obtaining OPT authorization. This includes learning how to request an OPT I-20, how to complete an I-765 application for employment authorization, and how and where to submit your OPT application to USCIS. The first of four steps in the application process for OPT authorization is to determine a reasonable completion date with your academic advisor. This is especially true for any students completing a degree that requires a thesis or a dissertation. It is extremely important that you trust your research advisor to assist you with setting a reasonable and obtainable defense date. The second step in the OPT authorization process is to request an OPT recommendation I-20 from the International Center. It is very important to note at this point in the OPT authorization process, the I-20 you receive will only have a recommendation for employment authorization on it. This is not the employment authorization itself. Processing time for an OPT I-20 is 1 to 2 weeks. The process for requesting an OPT recommendation I-20 will be reviewed later in this section. The third step in the OPT authorization process is to take a copy of your OPT recommendation I-20 as well as other required documentation, which will be reviewed later in this section, and send it to USCIS. The application for OPT authorization to USCIS is called the I-765 Application for Employment Authorization. Please remember that this step in the OPT authorization process may take up to 90 days to complete. 4 to 6 weeks after your application has arrived at USCIS, you will receive a receipt notice. The receipt notice will indicate the date USCIS has received your application. This is the date your 90-day processing window will begin. Finally, once your OPT application has been approved by USCIS, you will receive an employment authorization document. We will refer to this as an EAD card. Your EAD card should arrive approximately 2 weeks after your OPT authorization has been approved. Once you have received your receipt notice and have your receipt number, you can monitor the status of your application online at www.uscis.gov. Let's now discuss the process for Step 2 of acquiring your OPT authorization, requesting an OPT I-20 from the International Center. You must first complete the certificate version of this OPT online certification course. Once you have successfully completed this course, you will have the option of printing a certificate of completion. This certificate of completion is valid only for 4 months from the date you completed this course. If you attempt to request an OPT I-20 with a certificate older than 4 months, your request will be denied and you will be required to take this course again and get an updated certificate. Once you have printed the certificate of completion, you must bring that and the additional required documentation to the International Center to request your OPT I-20. The documentation required to request an OPT I-20 will be reviewed later in this section. This list will also be included on your certificate that you will print at the end of this course. Incomplete requests will not be accepted. Once you have submitted your OPT I-20 request to the International Center, an advisor will review it and submit it for processing. Please allow us 2 weeks to process your request. Once your request is completed, you will receive an email indicating that your OPT I-20 is ready to be picked up at the front desk of the International Center. If you will not be in Ann Arbor at the time you expect your OPT I-20 to be ready for pickup, you may write on your OPT I-20 request that you authorize a friend to pick up your I-20 for you. If you choose this option, please write your friend's name and U of M ID number on the request. If you would prefer that we ship the I-20 to you when it is ready, please mark Ship on your I-20 request form instead of Pickup, and follow the shipping options. Please do not request an OPT I-20 unless you plan to apply for OPT within 30 days from the day an advisor signs page 1 of your I-20. If your application has arrived at USCIS more than 30 days from this date, your application will be returned to you unprocessed. The documentation required to request an OPT I-20 includes an OPT online certificate of completion, a letter from your academic advisor confirming your completion date. Please remember, your I-20 completion date and your graduation date may be different. If you need to review this information, please go back to Section 2. You must also submit copies of pages 1 and 3 of all I-20s from your current degree level only. Also, please include a copy of the front of your I-94 card and copies of the front of any previous EAD cards you've had while in F1 status. Finally, we need a copy of an unofficial transcript you have printed from Wolverine Access. Please do not include copies of any dependent immigration documents as they are not necessary. Also, please remember, incomplete requests will not be accepted, so make sure you have everything on this list included in your packet when you're ready to submit it to the International Center. When you pick up your OPT I-20 from the International Center, you will find your OPT recommendation at the top of page 3. Please review this information to make sure that the information is correct. Remember, the information on page 3 of your I-20 is only a recommendation for OPT authorization. This is not the approval. You must complete the I-765 application process and submit it to USCIS. You cannot begin working until you have received your EAD card and the date listed on the EAD card as your start date has arrived. Once you have received your OPT recommendation I-20 from the International Center, you may submit your I-765 application for employment authorization to USCIS. The documents required for the I-765 application include the I-765 application fee, which may be a check or money order payable to the Department of Homeland Security. Please write your I-94 number in the bottom left-hand corner of your check. If you use a personal check, don't forget to make sure you have enough money to cover this check in your checking account. And do not close your bank account before this check clears, or your application will be rejected. You must also file an I-765 application for employment authorization document, which can be found at www.uscis.gov in the Forms section. You must also include 2 passport photographs with your name, I-94 number written in the back of the photo in pencil. We recommend that you put these photographs and your check into a small envelope or Ziploc bag and paperclip it to the other documents so they do not get separated from your application. The other documents required for your I-765 application include a copy of page 1 and 3 of your OPT I-20, a copy of all previous I-20s for your current degree level, copy of your passport, the photo and expiration page if they are different, a copy of the front and back of your I-94 card, a copy of your most recent F1 visa stamp, and a copy of any previous EAD cards. Please write the degree level for which each of your EAD cards was issued on that copy. Copies of your dependents' immigration documents are not required for this application. This list, USCIS mailing addresses, and some tips for your OPT application will be on a handout attached to your OPT I-20. So it will not be necessary to come to the International Center to have an advisor review your application before you send it. Just follow this list exactly as it appears on your handout and place them in an envelope in the order in which they are listed. If you lose this handout or want to reference it at any time, you can come back to this online course and print it from the resource documents. Many students have questions about how to fill out the I-765. To assist you, we will go through this process together. When you download the PDF of the I-765, we strongly recommend that you type directly into the document and then print the form. USCIS uses scanners to read the data you have entered, so handwritten information may be scanned incorrectly. When filling out the I-765 form, the first thing you should do is mark the box Permission to Accept Employment. Then write your name in line 1. Your family name should be written first in all capital letters. Leave a few spaces, write your first name, then leave a few spaces, and if you have a middle name, write that. Line 2 is labeled Other Names Used. If you live at the address that you will write in Section 3 of the I-765 form, leave this space blank. If you are not living at the address you will be using in Section 3, please write the abbreviation C/O, which means in care of, and write the person who lives there who will be taking care of your mail. In Section 3, write the address to where you want your EAD card sent. This address determines the address to where you will send your I-765 application. If you are not sure what your address will be in 3 months, it is strongly suggested that you use the mailing address of a reliable friend whom you are certain will still be at this address when your EAD card is expected to arrive. Just don't forget to put that person's name on line 2. Next, write your country of citizenship on line 4. If you are a dual citizen, write the country noted on your I-20, which should match the passport you use to enter the United States. On line 5, type in your place of birth. This includes the town or city, state or province, as well as the country in which you were born. Next is your date of birth. Please remember to use the U.S. format. Month, day, then year. Next, click on the box for the appropriate gender. For Section 8, click on the box for the appropriate marital status. If you already have a Social Security number, type the number. If you do not have a Social Security number, type will apply. Line 10 asks for your alien registration number or your I-94 number. You likely do not have an alien registration number. So first, write your I-94 number on this line. After the I-94 number, As a courtesy to the USCIS officer reviewing your application, write your CVIS number. You can find your CVIS number in the top right corner of your I-20. Section 11 asks if you have ever applied for employment authorization from USCIS. This does not include authorizations for curricular practical training. If you have previously received an EAD card, you must mark yes. Next, you must indicate which USCI office approved that EAD card, the dates your employment authorization were approved, as well as if it was granted or denied. If it was granted, attach a copy of the EAD card and write the degree level for which it was granted. If your EAD card or application for employment authorization was denied, attach a copy of the denial notice. The next line asks you for your last date of entry into the United States. Generally, you will find this on the stamp placed on your I-94 card. If you went to Canada, Mexico, or adjacent islands and used automatic visa revalidation, this would not be reflected on your I-94 card, and you must remember and write the last date of entry into the United States. The next line asks for your place of entry into the United States. This may not be your final destination. Your place of entry into the United States is where you met with an immigration officer. The city where you met with this officer is designated by a 3-letter code on your I-94 card. For example, DET would be Detroit, ORD would be Chicago, and LAX would be Los Angeles. If you are an F1 student, the last time you entered the United States, write F1 student in section 14. If you are not an F1 student the last time you entered the United States because you entered in another visa category and then applied for a change of status to F1, write that status at the time of your last entry. For line 15, your current immigration status should be F1 student. Write F1 student on this line. On line 16, eligibility category. If you are applying for pre-completion OPT, write C3 capital A. If you are applying for post-completion OPT, write C3 capital B. Leave section 17 blank, read the certification paragraph, and then sign your name between the lines. Your signature should not touch the line above or below this section. Type in your current telephone number. Do not worry if this number changes. We do not expect USCIS to call you. Finally, complete the date you have filled out this I-765 form. If you need assistance filling out the I-765 application for employment authorization, you may return to the review version of this course for step-by-step instructions. If you prefer to download a written version of these instructions, you may print a paper copy from the resources section of this tutorial. There are often many mistakes on the I-765 form, so it's very important that you fill it out carefully and completely before sending your application to USCIS. Some of the most common errors on the form I-765 include the permission to accept employment box is not checked, or the Postal Service is unable to deliver the EAD card to the address listed on the I-765. So please make sure it is as accurate as possible. Also, many students forget to sign page 1 of their I-20. Your signature must be on page 1 of every I-20 you submit to USCIS. Another common mistake is to sign your name too large and go outside the lines provided in the signature box. The last most common error we see is that an application was received by USCIS more than 30 days after the OPT I-20 was signed by an advisor. Please do not request your OPT I-20 if you do not plan on submitting your application to USCIS within the next 30 days. Once you have completed your entire packet for your I-765 application for employment authorization, you must send it to USCIS. It is the responsibility of the student to mail this application. It is very important to note that your application must be mailed to USCIS from inside the United States. You cannot mail it from a non-US address, or it will be rejected. We strongly suggest that you use a trackable mailing method, one that includes a tracking number or a delivery confirmation. You will find that there are two possible addresses to where you may send your I-765 application. You can find these addresses on the I-765 instructions or on the handout attached to your OPT I-20. One address will be a post office box where only U.S. Postal Service mail can be sent, and you cannot have a signature required upon delivery. If you choose to use UPS, Federal Express, or send your application in certified mail, please use the physical address listed on either the instructions or on the handout attached to your OPT I-20. There is an option to e-file your application on the USCIS website. We strongly discourage using this option. This is one of the instances where e-filing is not more efficient. Finally, there is no way to expedite your OPT application, so it is very important that you follow the application timeline we have provided in Section 2. Next, we will discuss what you do while your OPT application is pending. Approximately 4 to 6 weeks from the date USCIS receives your application, you will receive a receipt notice. The 90-day application processing time at USCIS begins on the received date located in the top left corner of your receipt notice, not the date you sent the application to USCIS. If 6 weeks has passed since the date USCIS has received your application and you have not received your receipt notice, you may email lockboxsupport@dhs.gov. Please do not contact the International Center as we cannot assist with locating the receipt notice. After you receive your receipt notice, you can use the receipt number listed in the top left corner to check your case status online at www.uscis.gov. On this site, you can also sign up for automatic email notifications if the status of your application changes. For additional tips on your OPT application, please refer to the International Center website at the link below and look for Steps to Minimize Complications and Exceptions and Problems. Please refer to this site first if you have questions while your OPT application is pending. Once your OPT application is received by USCIS, you continue to maintain your F1 immigration status. Do not worry if your grace period has passed, as long as your application has been received before the end of the 60 days. You continue to remain in F1 status and are allowed to stay in the United States. If you plan on traveling outside the United States while your OPT application is pending, it is very important that you make sure your OPT application has been received by USCIS before you leave, or your F1 status will no longer be valid and you will no longer be eligible for OPT. When you re-enter the United States while your OPT application is pending, please Please make sure to carry your receipt notice with your I-20 and use that as proof USCIS has received your OPT application. This is an example of what your EAD card will look like. You will receive your EAD card approximately 2 weeks after your case has been approved. When you receive your EAD card, it is important to look at the card validity dates at the bottom. You are not allowed to begin employment until this date. There is no guarantee the start date on your EAD card will match the date that you requested, and therefore there is no way to know what that date will be until you receive the card. Please do not contact the International Center. We cannot find that out for you. You must wait until you receive the EAD card. If you do not receive your EAD card before you plan to begin your employment, you cannot work in any way for your employer without pay before the EAD card arrives. Once you receive your EAD card, please scan and email or fax a copy of the card to the International Center. Please write your University of Michigan ID on the copy. You can email it to icenter@umich.edu or fax a copy to 734-647-2181. We will make sure a copy of your EAD card is included in your University of Michigan immigration record. You have now completed Section 3 of the University of Michigan International Center OPT online certification course. At this point, you should know how to request your OPT I-20, how and when to file your I-765 application for employment authorization with USCIS, when you receive your receipt notice, and how you will know when your OPT authorization begins and ends. If any of the information in this section is unclear, please review this section again. Once you understand all the information in this section, you may move to this section's quiz. Once you answer every question correctly, you will be prompted to move on to Section 4.